Say hello to everybody.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
Good, good.
Great to be doing Zoom.
Good, super.
So, we had a discussion a couple weeks ago in the office between the group that's trying to put this recreation plan together with Fish and Wildlife and with the city. So I have given you, AJ, just a load of information on what has been done so far, what's been talked about, what's been reported, what the city has agreed to. So there's the agreement that's in there. What they're looking at this point is trying to get an okay on the signage. At the same time, we're working on the levy commission, joint levy commission, to try to get that group together to dedicate the deeds for the properties that are part of the levy. That way we can look at dividing a section of property off that would be for Fish and Wildlife to the east of the levy. Yes. Maintaining easements and all the other stuff, but just creating that area that the Fish and Wildlife Service would take over. That is going to be a long-term project, but it is something that we're working on. So we also have a representative from Fish and Wildlife tonight, in case you've got any questions. So I was introduced about 35 minutes ago. That is now gone.
Because you can't remember her name, right?
That's it. Sorry.
Her name's not sorry.
Oh, well.
Casey Ryan.
Casey. I knew that.
So Sandra Cabot is here, John Carroll's here, Bob Mueller's here. This is a group that we've been discussing this with. What you have before you mostly tonight, a couple of things. We're looking at signage for the levy. So it sounds kind of odd, you're not supposed to do anything on the levy. Well, yeah, you can. You can have recreation, you can have pedestrian bicycle traffic. You can let people walk up there and then walk to the east side and try to connect St. Genevieve, which has a history of being flooded, but has a history with the river, which at this point we don't, because we can't even see it from this point. So you don't have that connection. So the idea is to try to create that connection, create that wildlife area that you can go out and see the species of birds and fish that exist there, and try to create a habitat to bring more birds and fish, but also create some trails and some access points so you can get down there and see the river, so you can get close and get in close to it, where at this point you're going to stand on top of the levee and you're just going to see a bunch of trees. You may see some farmland, but you really don't have that connection. So that's the idea behind this, and this is part of the overall plan of the levy. This is phase 4 is what they called it, is to create it where you've got different different points of interest that you're educating people as to what they're looking at, what they're viewing. So you've got a list of some of the areas that the signs are going to go in, and then you've got a copy, a black and white copy of what the signs look like. So the cost on this is going to be about $7,500 for the signs. We're working with the Corps of Engineers now to approve them. But we're also looking at, this group would like to rename the access to the levee. So if you look at where Division Street is and Main Street, because of his involvement in wildlife for years, being from St. Genevieve, so Stormy Crawford, is well respected. Was an individual that really, helped put St. Genevieve on the map, and then I guess went to Bush Wildlife. Is that where he ended up?
The Wild Bird Sanctuary. Yeah, he owned the Wild Bird Sanctuary.
Yeah.
Powder Valley,
Powder Valley. That's it. I was in the wrong area. So the thought is maybe to rename the east side, so we've got Division Street on the west side, maybe make it Stormy Crawford Way. So you would identify and honor him by making that the access. So you're also looking at parking. So if you go out there now, if you've been out there in the last 6 months or so like I have, if you went out there today, you'd see where they've cut down all of the cottonwood trees and left the main trees that they're trying to get there to grow. So it makes it a very open space. It's easy to maneuver through. But you're looking at a parking area down the bottom and then access up the side of the levee. And then across the levee, you're going to have signage that tells you about different aspects of the wildlife area. And if anybody wants to jump in and expand on what limited knowledge I have of this, please do.
You know, I would like to, because we've been working on this for quite a while, and it's always been the plan with this levy to tack on recreation. You know, and the things that I saw early on in that recreation was a lot of money. So the board decided, well, we're not going to pursue that, but this is something that's affordable that we can pursue, because I think we owe it. It's something for the taxpayers. You know, it's their levy. We all pay. You live in St. Genevieve here, you pay taxes to keep that levy in great shape and access. It's a shame that to develop the land, and I was always opposed to doing anything on the other side of the levee because it floods, and how you maintain the trail. But with Fish and Wildlife taking over this whole thing, well, that's all right. They're going to take care of that at their expense. You know, we're going to have some expense in this, but it's going to be, I think it's going to be minimal to what we're going to get for our money here. It's just an incredible situation here. I mean, I know going into this, some things to look at. There's a farmer that farms some of that property down there. Well, we go through with this, we could lose that. But it's not a lot of money. But on the front end, on the back end of this, it's a tremendous opportunity. The levee board, our levee district has been doing major improvements on Division Streets because it flooded. Well, they've added pipes, and they've got this water to where because that whole thing is when the creek's coming up and floods, that's a floodplain, and they're on this side of the levee until it can get through the levee on the other, through the gates getting through. But we've had terrible time keeping the road. Gary will tell you how many times he's been down there patching Division Street trying to get into the brush site. They've corrected that, and I can't wait for a big rain to see what happens. But I think, and we all feel confident that the time and money they spent in Division Street, which would probably rename, but I think it's going to be great. And there's already some things in place. This parking lot we're talking about, it's got a great rock base, you know. One of these days we need on that levee, we'll probably have to spend some money to make it like the Katy Trail, you know, and for people to have access to it. And then and handicap access too. So and then what's a cool thing about this is what's going on at the park right now, and the path you have on Main Street. Man, look at the recreation and the opportunities we're going to have here in the future for future generations in this town. So that's my 2 cents on it.
So U.S. Fish and Wildlife is going to fund the cost for the interpretive sign, so a lot of that cost is going to be theirs. We're looking at a street sign, directional signage.
And some parking lot improvements, I think.
But also, when we look at transferring deeds and doing a survey, that's where our cost is going to come in. So you're looking at a budget amendment because we don't know what the costs are yet. But that would be next month, and that would be out of the capital project line item that we have. So it's whether we're moving forward on this. That's what this group is here to find out. Is the board still in sync with this? You want us to keep moving forward, get that going? We're looking at installation, whether we can do the installation or installation costs to get the signage in up there. We got to do it per Corps of Engineer specs, but that would be forthcoming.
Yeah, absolutely.
Paul, how much acreage are we talking about farm ground that we possibly could lose?
I think,
Sandra, come to the podium.
my memory serves, I believe it's about 35 acres. It's 2 small fields to the east of the levee, as Happy pointed out. There's other rental property or leased property on the inside of the levee that is farmed, but it's these 2 small ones that are outside the
It's
levee.
these 2 right here, Bob. It's
Yeah.
this one and this one.
Right.
And they don't get a crop every year anyway.
Right.
So there's another member of our task force who's not here, and that's Vern Bowman, and he could probably tell you about every tree and fishing hole, everything to the east of the levee. But if my memory serves, it's about 34 acres of farm ground.
What's been the communication between us or these working groups and the farmer? Like if we're going to displace a farmer, what kind of buy-in do they have into this plan?
Well, They've been aware of it. I know Martin would have been in conversation with them. As we move forward, Happy would be in conversation with, you've had some conversations with them already, I know.
Right.
But in terms of renewing the leases, once the property goes to Fish and Wildlife, then Fish and Wildlife would take over that correspondence with them. But the city would have that conversation.
But what all will Fish and Wildlife do with that area that's crop ground now?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if there's specific plans for that area. And we've had farming on refuges, but we've really phased out of that with GMO and neonicotinoid treated seeds for pollinators. It just kind of goes against our mission. So we would not be opposed if that was something that came with the actual transfer of the land. We could probably work in like a year or two just to transition out of that, still with that farmer. That's not uncommon, but it probably wouldn't be anything beyond a year or two.
Right. No,
And then it might be something where we would either let that grow up. I know we have areas that are kind of carved out to maintain trails to the river for fishing access and that kind of thing, but it's potentially that it would be planted in trees or that it would be kept open as kind of moist soil, just depending on what the site is suited for. It would be habitat.
Are you concerned or want to know how much revenue the city is making off that?
that's my next question.
Yeah.
They've asked that we also reduce the price of that land because they've had so many floods the last few years that they've had to clean them.
Yeah, the woods and stuff. I talked to the farmer, he approached me about that, it was about 6 months ago. Talked to us about reducing what we're getting because of the cleanup of that property. Every time it floods, well, you know what?
Sand.
Got logs and everything. And the crops are they got a good crop in there right now, but that's kind of intermittent too, depending on the floods and stuff.
So what are we getting dollar-wise?
I can't give you an exact number.
Like 5,000 for that piece?
5,000 a year?
Yeah.
About 5,000 a year.
So is Fish and Wildlife, it's all or nothing out there, or?
Well, I think the way that this partnership came about, and it predates me, but I believe that we were approached about, taking over that portion, acquiring that. And something I included I have our brochure with Middlemas Refuge, some information, but also this map that shows the properties that we have now, and just kind of how St. John fits in that picture. So for us, it's really, this partnership in itself is just really appealing to us because St. John does have such a tourist base, a proactive community and city that you guys engage in so much outreach and just public events that it's really just such an easy pairing. And to have that, I think the clean divide really is that area east of the levee with you guys retaining that portion that still, makes a partnership.
So if you do plantings on this open area now that's crop ground and it floods, can we expect you to go in and redo all that plantings and clean it all up, or?
Yeah, so the way, right now, a lot of our units, and actually the Middlemas itself, Refuge, is majority island units or this area that is in the floodplain. And so some of it is managed really passively, some of it we work with the Corps to do some pretty large scale projects. But yeah, we would take on any management of that, what we acquired. And yeah, if it was a planting and it failed, even if it's not on there, because we do have a tree planting on the inland portion of the levee that, we actually were out mowing and doing some maintenance in this past week, and we found that we do have quite a bit of tree mortality with this planting that we did back in 2015, 2016. And so we're already brainstorming what is the way we're going to go, replant some of this area and adding the pipes to help the drainage and everything. So we're already actively helping with habitat management and planting on properties that is you guys and not us, because it benefits us as a partnership. And this partnership is really valued up to the top of our region because it's just we don't typically partner with cities. We don't have this opportunity, and it's really, really neat for us, and, you know, we hope that the city feels the same way.
How many acres is it?
It'll end up being, so for the crop is 30 to 35.
No,
acres.
the entire
The
area.
total's gonna be about 50 to 55 acres. out there.
Yeah.
And then there'll be some stipulations that the levy board has to keep in there, because they have some tree lines that have to stay in there, but there's other things that they'll be working hand in hand with them and the Corps. And one of the meetings, a couple meetings ago, they talked about that the Corps will be involved and put money into this project to do some things in there to create some more wildlife habitat in there. It's pretty cool, and there's a lot of federal money out there for that, you know, that they will have access to, that's going to benefit all of us. Well, it'll benefit our city. So.
Yeah, we work with the Corps like hand in hand on all of our habitat projects up and down the river. So there could be big money that comes into, you know, this is a small acreage, but you'd be surprised what could happen.
So we maintain that road all the way out there now?
Do we?
Right.
Which road do you mean, Division Street?
Yeah,
The gravel?
The gravel out past the,
that's the burn
We
site.
usually maintain it to the brush side and levee district,
Yeah.
maintains it from there.
they have been, yes.
Division actually ends at the cable where it blocks the road. That's actually Division Street all the way to that.
The cable by the parking lot?
Yeah.
Taking it to parking lots at the bottom.
At the base of the levee.
Yeah.
or right
At the base of the
before
parking lot,
Yeah,
for the
right
parking
before
lot.
the base of the levee.
That cable.
Mr. Mayor, are you able to give us a read on the farmers' perception of being displaced from those two fields?
Well, I don't have a read on it, but, you know, it's pretty much, if we're gonna do this, it's our decision, it's
Right,
city's
right.
crown, so
Right.
we look at, you know, the offsetting it, you know, yeah, he's still gonna be farming ground below that, you know, but,
Yeah, I don't advocate we do anything to stand in the way of this at all. I just would feel better if we knew.
I mean, what are you looking for from the farmer? He's approached me that he wants a reduction in what he's paying there because he's doing a bunch of cleaning in that field anyway.
Right.
So, it's,
I mean, if we've got a 1 or 2 year on-ramp here,
yeah.
if we negotiate that, or we
Yeah,
have
and
that
it's gonna be a
possibility.
process. We're not gonna
Yeah.
just give it up tomorrow, you know,
Yeah,
it's a
right, yeah.
process that's gotta be gone through. We're gonna continue to let him farm there, you know, so.
Yeah, there's a win for both parties, I would think, but.
You know, so
Gary,
that
do you
way
have a question?
Yeah, you said it's 50-something acres total?
I believe so.
And the inside of the levee was 30-something,
No,
the
no.
remainder of that, the trees that are already there?
So what I was talking about was the cropland. This is all on the east side. The
'Cause I thought there
cropland,
was a couple, like 100 acres out there.
there's like
You're right.
300 acres out there, I believe.
Yeah, the whole area is a couple hundred acres.
Yeah.
We're only talking about the part east of the levee.
Yes.
And the cropland is those two small
Mhm.
triangular shaped areas above and below the mandatory tree screen. So to answer your question, the 50 some odd acres he's talking about, includes those two little
Okay.
fields and the mandatory tree screen that cuts through the middle of it and the mandatory tree screen along the levee. That's what adds up to 50.
I thought it was total, I was saying, because that's already, they've been not dropping for what, 3 or 4 years now?
Right,
Yeah,
because
the
of all the trees.
inside,
yeah.
all the inside is, yeah. So it's
Yeah.
basically
Still the
going,
problem.
Yeah, take care of that down there.
so it's basically just south of the borrow pit to the north of the north crop ground?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. And what he's calling the borrow pit will soon be transformed to be called Lake Audubon. But we'll always know it as the borrow pit.
Yes, John?
I think it's worth noting that the Lake Audubon is going to have a retained easement by the levee district to borrow from that if they need to.
Right.
That was a stipulation of their support. We've had the levee district totally working on this. They're in support of it, thanks, you know, to Vern and all that. But one of the conditions is that they have to have access to that borrow area in case they need more borrow.
Yeah.
That actually works for the wildlife, because otherwise it would silt in and eventually be just a low field. But the fact that they will go in there from time to time to get borrow means there will be water in it. And so that's actually a plus for the wildlife, because we need an area with water to attract the ducks and stuff like that.
Any more questions?
My comment that, can I make a comment?
Yes, please.
There was a couple other things in there too. One is that we wanted to name the north side of the levee as the Bill Emerson Trail. He was very instrumental in getting the language changed such that we got the levee for historic protection of our historic properties. And the south part of that trail, the south part of the levee would be named after Dick Gephardt, who actually got the funding through Congress. And the other thing is we'd like to name that seasonal trail that's outside the levee that goes to the farmer's field and eventually to the river after Vern Bowman for all the work he's done since 1973 and also the 1993 flood in keeping this levee in front of Congress and having it built and having it maintained. And I think the other thing is to name this thing the St. Genevieve Levee Wildlife Refuge.
Then on the other benefit of this too is you're going to have, just like the national park, people come to these wildlife refuges, and that's going to be more, it's going to offset anything we do here. People are going to come to town to see this, you know, because it's part of their system now, you know, so, yeah.
And it will be listed in their brochures, like the ones that you have.
Right.
This will be, you know, sort of like a pearl on that necklace all the way up and down the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
You know, Paul, I shook my head here just a minute ago when we talked about naming rights to stuff. I'm not a huge favor of naming rights to politicians. You know, I think there's bigger heroes out there that are deserving, and you know, one just kind of come to mind was I guess the last serviceman that we lost, you know, in Afghanistan was the Beckerman boy. Somebody like that to me, I think is much more deserving. You know, we name bridges, we name federal courthouse buildings after politicians, but I think somebody local, somebody like that, you know, or at least somewhere in the situation should be included. But I am just not a huge, you know, these congressmen are doing their job. They're paid very well for it, but I'd like to see more of a local. Yeah, that's just my opinion.
Well, and we could decide that at a later date. I
Sure,
mean, that's
yeah.
not a game breaker here, you know. So.
Right. No, I mean, I think the whole project, you know, but, you know, going back to what Mike talked about on this farmer, you know, these farmers put in fertilizer, they put in, you know, they spray weeds, they do a lot of different things, clean up, you know, and all in preparation for the next year. So I think we do need to give them the benefit of, you know, a cushion in there so they know what's coming. And
we'll do that. We're going to do that with them.
Right.
Because this is not something that's going to happen tomorrow. This guy could be farming this thing for a couple of years,
right.
You know, and we can give him plenty of cushion to, you know, to do that. I don't think we're going to just go in there and say, hey, you're out.
Right.
You know.
And I hope this is not the only farm ground that he farms. You know,
I don't know what, I can't remember. I think it's the same farm that farms us out on Progress Parkway too, isn't it?
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, different.
Different farm.
This is Brian Kurtz that's over there. That's Michael Negger.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We understood from the previous city manager that this is a large farmer. He farms thousands of acres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So. Any other questions? So Happy, what do we need here tonight? Just to move, approval to move forward here?
Since nobody's yelling at me, I'm guessing we're good.
Yes.
That's kind of what I was shooting for, but also make you aware of where we are in the process, and that you will have some financial requests coming your way, some budget adjustments that we need to put in place for this to happen. And to give you the bigger picture of as to where You know, it's not just that we're looking to split a piece of property. There's a whole plan in place now on how to make this develop. And some of you were part of the group that signed off on the original MOU with Fish and Wildlife. And for those that weren't here, now you have a copy of it, you kind of understand that the city did engage in this and wanted to move forward.
I just happened to think of another name. You know, you had mentioned Vern Bowman. I know there was another elderly gentleman that was right there every day too, and that was Emerald Lloyd.
Oh, yeah, Emerald, yeah.
Something dedicated in his name also would be.
Good thought.
Okay.
Well, there's a ton of them that come to mind now.
And my only question is where we're in this process, now this is the second time this has been brought to a board, and then next April, there's probably going to be, there could be more new board members, so I guess.
We'll try to include that in a board packet, to show where we are in this process.
Okay, that's my only concern. I don't, because every time, now this is the second time we've shown a lot of favoritism toward this, and we don't want to lose that and keep,
I figured you could do a webinar on it, and we can just have it set up in here.
Right.
Okay, good, yeah, I'd love doing webinars. I have Mike help me.
I just have a quick question here, and sorry if I missed it, there's a lot of information here. I saw hunting in the brochure. Would this be a non-hunting?
Yeah, basically, and I think as part of our putting this interpretive signage together, that was our recommendation to the city and working with the committee was, you guys need to have an idea of the rules and regulations you want for this site because this is, it's up to you, and so.
It's in the city limits.
Yeah, so that kind of thing would just be, and just because of the proximity where it is, we wouldn't have hunting.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure of that.
Absolutely.
Okay, very good. We'll move forward.
All right. All right.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Bob.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
That makes it all the more positive when we voted down spending our city money for all those trails.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was good.
Get it out there.
All right, so next up is, we're still talking about floods.
Oh, boy.
This is the buyout property.
You know, so that's.
So we got the new agreement, and you wanted
I don't know how
some,
it's got nicknames for me.
Bob's not engaged yet.
Wow, man.
yes, thank you.
Oh, great. Stormy's great.
So we had a new contract that was written up, market included, putting in some sort of requirement on insurance. We got to do a base number on what we thought the insurance should be based, with our insurance carrier. That number was pretty high, and you all discussed and wanted some other numbers to see where you wanted to try to put this. So with our research, on that second paragraph, it showed that we had costs ranging from zero, because most people have no buildings on there, it's vacant, and they just develop it with, they cut the grass, keep it short, put flowers in, gardens. But some of the insurance companies said, well, it might be $40 to $50 extra because if we're going to have to go to a $500,000 liability policy, that's going to kick that rate up for the homeowner. Most homeowners have what, 100, 150,000, maybe 200, depends, but it's getting pretty high. And we had one insurance company said they wouldn't list it, just they outright, because it's not the homeowners, it's the cities. They didn't want to put the city on as additional insured. It's like, well, that's your choice, but so I wanted you to know that. So going through this, it seems like the board didn't want to put a financial burden on the homeowners, let them continue to take care of those properties. Our insurance carrier has attorneys that we've been talking to during this process as well, and they really are impressed with how well the contract is written, or the agreement is written. So they understood why we didn't want to go for the full $500,000, but they thought that the agreement was pretty solid. So if you want to just go with allowing the homeowner to, they have to cover a sum, as long as their insurance company will do that, or they're going to have to get insurance and put us on there as additional insured. But just do it at the rate that their house is, and not try to make them increase it to $500,000.
But they couldn't give you a number somewhere in between that was common, or?
It depends on the homeowner. Theirs was whatever the homeowner has as their basic policy, and that could be, 100, 200,000. I don't know. I can't even tell you what mine is. It won't cover, whatever they have won't cover what sovereign immunity allows up to, and then after that we aren't liable. But, if you want, again, you're still charging up to about $500,000 for liability insurance, which could be $40, $50. You may not have people that want to then lease that property, and we're back to cutting the grass. But they thought our contract was pretty tight and would cover whatever those issues would be. And we haven't had any incidents. As long as we, watch over those properties, kind of keep track of what's going on, then that should help as well. So if you don't mind just going with whatever the homeowner has, we'll bring the contracts to you individually anyway as resolutions. We've got some people that want to re-sign and add. We've got one person that wants to add a piece of property. You can start that process.
How long are those contracts for?
Once every year, it's a yearly contract.
So we can review it after the next year, and if we have an issue, we can.
When we might have a new insurance company too.
Right.
Might be something worth.
Yeah, maybe some difference
Each time.
of opinion there.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm comfortable with your recommendation.
No.
Me too.
Yep. Okay, Anthony, we're comfortable with your recommendation.
All right.
What's your last bit of business, Anthony?
Linda Drive, or Linda Street, or Linda, the extension there. All right, so this was brought before the board apparently about 8 years ago. I have not found those minutes yet.
It's been brought up many, many times.
Yeah, so you have new homeowners that own both those properties. Glenda Drive is off of LaCroix, which is off of Cedar. And at one time it looked like they were trying to extend the road to get back up to South 7th Street.
Yeah.
Or at least try to get under the railroad tracks.
Gabor is good.
It was a road at one time.
Gabor,
It
that's
was
right,
a
South
road at
Gabor,
one time.
yeah.
South Gabor.
It was a road at one time.
Right.
Years ago, and I've already had two former aldermen discuss this with me, and it was shot down. The two homeowners ago, they requested it because they're wanting to get rid of that land that separates, or that swath of street that separates the two pieces. It was denied. The middle homeowner didn't try to approach it. The current owner is wanting to do that as well. One alderman, our former alderman, said that, that was made clear to her when it was sold to her, that an attempt has been made multiple times to have the city abandon that and to the property owner at the time, and it's been denied each time. The city's comprehensive plan, I believe, at least what we've talked about since then, especially when the golf cart ordinance came up, was, since at the time the golf carts and stuff weren't allowed on state highway or state roads and stuff, to make that a pedestrian / small UTV, ATV type crossing so that the carts and stuff could get into downtown. And that's never been done. Instead it's been blocked off. But
Well, my question is, who would pay to do that, though?
well, city property.
I understand that, but you go down there, you take that property down, and there's the creek, you're into the creek, which has a low water bridge on it, but you got
Getting
a
ready to go fishing?
Which
bluff, not a
doesn't,
bluff.
I mean, it doesn't always have water on it, but
Well, no, it's not even a problem with the water, but it's access to the other side of the creek is the problem.
Yeah, there's that.
but
I mean, it's grown up and it's that bluff, I don't know if I don't even know really how you'd even dig on that without Corps engineers involved, because you're into the creek, so. Gary, you have your hand up?
The next problem is on the railroad trestle side, that is, we barely get through there with lawnmower anymore, where it's caved off. So, you're ready to build something new over there, and that's all on railroad property, so, what kind of battle that could be.
Yeah. And I'm not, it was a good plan, I think, at one time, but
Yeah, they don't.
it's been 8 to 10 years and nobody's ever, and now that we have ordinances that they can get on the street. So it's changed a little bit, you know. But I'm not here to sway anybody. It don't make me a difference. I can understand the homeowners, thing, what she wants to do there. Talked to her yesterday, but I also look at too, we have some rights there. There's a sewer line goes down through there. There's a gas line too that goes down through there too.
There's quite a few utilities that go through there.
Yeah, so there's utilities that are going through there, but,
So we would maintain an easement. I mean, we wouldn't let that, wouldn't let it go so we couldn't get in and maintain our facilities. We'd have to keep that. I just don't, from an outsider's point of view, I don't see the advantage to, or the benefit of it for the city. Because you really don't have access across that creek, and then the access on the other side is problematic. We have a piece of property over there, but I think we got that from the flood buyout.
Correct.
So you're only talking about abandoning the portion that goes to the back line of their property?
Yeah, and what we're talking about here is I'm trying to get the board, if you were willing to approve it, they're going to have to get a survey done because I don't know how to describe this in an ordinance and make it work. So if the board is going to say no, then we don't pursue it. She doesn't have to spend money on a surveyor, and I'm not spending the money on the surveyor. So we're not going through that. What I'm trying to do is just see where the board stands on this, that if we do bring it with an accurate description, a full description, and that description is of that vacated piece of property, that you're willing to approve that.
When you and I met with a former alderman out in the parking lot the other day, and you remember his response.
Yeah. And it was the same information that
But he was totally against it. He said former aldermen were against it. So we need to keep that in mind.
I'd definitely like to buy some time to consider. I mean, we need to represent everybody in that matter. If it's a neighborhood issue, if there are neighbors involved, I'd like to make sure that we know that they can come to some agreement, no matter what.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, because they're not losing the loop. It's just that section that goes off to the creek. That's the only piece that we're looking at.
And what does this city do as far as maintenance right now?
We're not doing anything except maintaining the stormwater and water. And
The property owner maintains it.
yeah, she cuts it.
he cuts the grass on it.
Yeah.
So why were you driving up through there with mowers? Was that an access?
Onto the buyout property on the other side of the creek.
Oh, you were coming down off the hill and...
No, we come off of South Gabourey.
South Gabourey.
Under the
Oh,
trestle.
right.
You can't get there from Glenda Street. You run into the creek down there and there's a bank that's about that tall right now to get through.
Yeah, we're up in Gabourey to access that buyout.
Sure, there had to be a road going through there because there was a street at one
I
time.
remember driving through there when I was little.
Driving through there too.
At one time, that subdivision was only accessed from 7th Street. You remember that?
Yeah.
At
Right.
one time, there was a concrete plant.
Yeah, there was a concrete plant down there originally.
Really?
Yep.
It was a Geely
Geely.
subdivision.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, they actually
Troy.
went out that way with concrete trucks at one time, but they were
Yep.
much smaller.
So how would this work if a homeowner wanted to basically take ownership of that tract? Could we require them to circulate some kind of a petition or solicit feedback from all the neighbors that would be affected by that, just to make sure that everybody in that area is well represented when it comes to that matter?
So who's affected by it?
I think.
You think it's, so is it,
I mean, in case it was-
that would be my question, is it just those that are on Glenda? Is it LaCroix? Does it go up to Cedar? I mean, and is it the folks on the other side?
Yeah, as far as how wide you cast that net, I can't speak to that right now.
Okay.
But certainly, it's more than one person.
We could say in that subdivision where it
Yeah.
goes
Well,
up to.
we think it's more than one person, but we don't know.
Well,
We've
true.
only heard from one person.
That is true.
So
That is true.
And that, so, yeah, I don't know,
But our job is to represent that one person
Oh,
as
absolutely.
well as anybody petitioning.
But if you remember right, on Third Street, we had some property there, it was a dead end that we did that to. You know, we give the landowner there, I think Travis Henderson come to the board, you know, for that piece of property there, butts up to that levee.
Yeah.
Used to be an old right of way, I guess a road, I don't know, so. I'm all for that. We're just discussing it tonight.
Yep, yep.
There is some opposition and there's, you know, then there's the lady that wants to do it, so. But we don't have to, we're not gonna act on anything. but
Right.
We can talk about it. We wanna go down there and knock on doors. You know, I would rather us see that. I would rather us send a notice to every homeowner in there and get something personally from that homeowner rather than take one person's,
Right.
you know.
Yeah,
so.
right, yeah, I agree.
But as far as I'm concerned, the path was a great idea, but if we're gonna do that, well, my question is, how long are we gonna wait? What's the point? It's never gonna happen, or it could happen, I guess, but maybe not. I don't know.
What for?
Okay, we'll do that.
I think that's the best way to do it. Happy, is there anything else? That's it?
Right.
Done.
Right.
All right, if there's not anything else, we'll call this meeting adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Good job, man.
Here you go, Penny.